What if your whole way of life was destroyed by someone who never lived in your town? What if regulations passed by government officials cause you lose your job or your home? This isn't a what if question, though, based on some sort of story that I'm going to write for later on. This is real life. Real people have been affected, and the film Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties on the Left's War on Coal, is here to tell their story. Coming up next, right here on the Parker J. Cole Show. Welcome to the show. I am so glad you're able to join me today for this edition of the Parker J. Cole Show. We're going to do something a little bit different today because we're going to be discussing a film that I had the pleasure of watching this week called Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties on the Left War on Coal. And we're going to be talking about that with my returning guest, Dr. Calvin Beisner from the Cornwall Alliance. As you know, Dr. Beisner has been a returning guest on this show for numerous times, and I always enjoy having him with us because he gives us another thought and another provocative way of looking at the environment and how our response is to trying to save the planet, to trying to make sure that we take care of our planet, but also the human factor in all of this. And so, Dr. Beisner, once again, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Well, thanks very much, Parker. Glad to be back with you and glad to be able to discuss this particular topic because I think a lot of people who are really struggling have been just left completely out of the consideration in terms of our country's energy policy.
You made such a wonderful statement when you just said that because before I watched this film that we're going to be discussing, I had no clue. And when I say I had no clue, this was not even on the radar of interest. This wasn't even talked about to me. This was something I had no interest in because I didn't know. And one of the things that I am finding out with our media is that we are quite biased in what we will put on the airwaves, and we're quite biased on what's going to be newsworthy. Things that I think should be newsworthy aren't, and things that shouldn't be newsworthy are. And so that's what we tend to do in America and the West with our media. We tend to put what we want to put on there because we want the sensationalism of it, but not the realism of it. And this movie, Collateral Damage, The Forgotten Casualties of the Left's War on Coal, is just one of those videos that really tugs at your heart. It tugs at everything that makes us American, everything that makes us want to have just a regular life, a regular family, go to work, take care of your children, take care of your families, and just continue to live what most of us want to do. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick short break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Dr. Beisner from the Cornwall Alliance about this film called Collateral Damage, The Forgotten Casualties of the Left's War on Coal. We'll be back in just a few moments.
If you are in need of life insurance, auto or home insurance, or need help in getting out of debt, call your helpful insurance agents at Prime Financial Services. Did you know if you add a child rider to your life insurance policy, you can add multiple children for the price of one, starting at $10,000 worth of coverage for under $10. Call today for a free quote at 313-293-0979. Mention you heard this ad on this show for a free gift.
Engaging the culture's imagination through speculative fiction, the Untold Podcast produces audio fiction from a Christian worldview. Find us over at untoldpodcast.com, where we partner with authors to tell science fiction, fantasy, supernatural, and horror stories. Find links at untoldpodcast.com to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, and a variety of other platforms. Each month we produce high-quality audio fiction that's free to download and free to listen. Our submissions are open, and we're always looking to add another great story to over 24 hours of narrative entertainment. Find all of our audio fiction over at www.untoldpodcast.com.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to the Parker J. Cole Show right here on WPJC 104.5. We are talking about the film Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties on the Left's War on Coal. With that is my returning guest co-host, Dr. Calvin Beisner from the Cornwall Alliance. And Dr. Beisner, like I said before the break, it's always good to have you here with us to talk about these issues of energy policy, global warming, climate change, and the poor, educating the poor, and all these things that fall under this umbrella of, quote unquote, wanting to save the planet. And so, Dr. Beisner, with this film, Collateral Damage, how did you personally get involved with this?
Well, actually, I didn't have any involvement in the creation of this film. I heard about it from our friends over at the Media Research Center, MRC, and I thought it was quite significant that you started off your comments pointing to the bias in the American news media, that they tell so many things as news that frankly are irrelevant, insignificant, superficial, so on. And they ignore some really important stories, and this is one that they do ignore. And Media Research Center, of course, is sort of a watchdog on American media. They look for the bias in American media, and then they try to correct it. And what actually happened there was that some of them became aware of what the devastation that was coming to communities all over West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Virginia itself, Wyoming, other states that are major coal-producing states, because the Obama administration has been pursuing a policy intentionally meant to end our use of coal as one of our energy sources. And as MRC began to look into that, they realized just how terribly biased the media coverage of this issue had been. They sent a small team of reporter and a cameraman to West Virginia to just do a few brief interviews, and they wound up so fascinated by it that they ended up producing a whole documentary film that you have seen now. So I saw it myself a couple of times, and I think it's got a tremendous story to tell. And essentially what it shows us is the complete devastation of many communities in coal-producing states because of the war on coal that has put thousands and thousands and thousands of workers out of work, that has impoverished thousands of families, that has brought poverty to communities that used to be strong and healthy. And it's just a terrible shame. And the real shame of it is that the whole policy is promoted on the rationale of trying to fight against global warming by reducing our CO2 emissions. And, of course, when you burn coal to make electricity, you produce CO2 that goes into the atmosphere. And the problem with that as a rationale is that whereas, yes, indeed, adding CO2 to the atmosphere does cause a little bit of warming, it only causes a little bit of warming. It doesn't cause disastrous warming. And our effort to mitigate that warming is essentially all pain and no gain. It's costing hundreds of billions of dollars per year already, and by 2030 and onward, it will cost between $1 and $2 trillion per year. And the result will be, well, a reduction in global average temperature in the year 2100 of about 0.36 degree Fahrenheit. I mean, that's utterly insignificant. It has no impact on any ecosystem, has no impact on human well-being, but we will have wasted well over $70 trillion, probably in the neighborhood of $140 to $150 trillion to achieve that. And a major part of the path is the destruction of the coal industry and of all those people who work in it, who have provided electricity, affordable, reliable electricity to millions and millions of people all over America.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's not like we're talking it's going to be just a small impact of people who are going to be affected by it. It's going to be a lot of people affected by these changes. And like I said, ignorance is, I always joke around, in some cases say ignorance is bliss, but ignorance in this case is kind of devastating because of the fact that these people who seem like they're good workers. In this video, and in this movie, the people who were talking have been coal miners and had a family of coal miners for many generations. And they had a stable living, a stable environment. They had a place to go. They had a place to work. And one thing the American people know is that if you want to get somewhere in life, you got to work. Everyone understands that. And now you have this industry that's being attacked by strenuous regulations of government that is destroying towns. And in the video, it mentioned the video was just done in West Virginia, but it wasn't just West Virginia. Other states have been affected by these EPA regulations. West Virginia, Kentucky, Wyoming, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, and Montana. And that's just to name a few. There are many people who have been affected by these heavy regulations on the coal industry. Now, people are going to say, you know what? You're just trying to get the emotions of people with this film. You're just trying to say, oh, these poor 4 or 5 people in this town are just having problems. But in the end, the planet's going to win. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. So what if a few thousand people have to lose their jobs? As long as we save the planet, that's what's matter. How would you critique that sort of attitude when it comes to things like this?
Well, let's assume that everything that the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which the folks on that side of this issue, they say that is the great authority on this topic, right? So let's assume that everything that they say is true. If everything that they say is true, then complete implementation of the climate treaty that was worked out in Paris a year ago next month, complete implementation of that would cost the world between $1 and $2 trillion a year from now to the end of the century, and would reduce global average temperature by 0.36 degrees Fahrenheit. That's using their own assumptions, their calculations about how much warming comes from CO2. Now, that is simply not a matter of saving the planet. The planet is not endangered by that. No ecosystem is endangered by that. Humanity is not endangered by that. No species is endangered by that. It's completely irrelevant. And yet we want to say, yeah, but it's okay. We're going to put hundreds of thousands of people out of work, and we're going to raise electricity prices for everybody else by depriving electricity generators of one of the cheapest and most reliable sources of the energy that they need to generate that electricity. And that means that we're going to have higher electricity rates for everybody in the world. And that means that the poor are going to suffer. It's particularly those who are just kind of on the boundary. They're barely making it, and then suddenly you raise electricity prices by 10, 20, 30%. It pushes them into what the British have come to call energy poverty or fuel poverty. And basically that's the situation where in the winter months, the people can no longer afford the energy needed to warm their homes enough to be safe, and at the same time to buy the food they need. So they buy the food and they eat, but they die of hypothermia. And in each of the last roughly 6 winters, that has resulted in an extra 20 to 25,000 premature winter deaths every year in the United Kingdom. Well, it would be even worse here.
And I remember that's a statistic that you've mentioned before on the show, and I think that's just so important to continue to reiterate that with all these great sounding ideas, we are not thinking of even the bigger picture. We're thinking of the bigger picture, but we're only thinking about one segment of the bigger picture. And like you said, with this film, Collateral Damage, you're looking at whole communities being wiped out. That's what was so heart-wrenching for me, a whole community being wiped out. These people were healthy, well, not healthy like in the physical sense, but they had healthy communities, they had jobs, they had families, they had stability, and now that is gone. And I would not wish that on anybody. I don't care. And
you can even say they were healthy in the physical sense too, in that because they had adequate income, they could have adequate nutrition, they could have safe homes, they could have warm homes in the winter, cool homes in the summer. All of these things, they had adequate health care. The coal companies that they worked for provided very generous health benefits. All of this was there. And then, because of the war on coal, all of that is lost. And so they lose not only the, as you put it, a healthy community with a strong economy, they even lose their own physical health because they can't afford good food anymore, they can't afford health care anymore. It's devastating to these people.
Now, I'm going to say something, Dr. Beisner, that may seem a little off tangent, but it's actually not off tangent because a lot of times right now with a lot of tensions going on in the U.S., there's a lot of racial tensions and inclusion and tensions, and everyone's upset about everybody else, that kind of thing. And so I was looking at this video, and I already know someone would say, you know what, but these are a lot of Caucasians in a small town that don't have anything. And people may say, well, it's West Virginia. It's in the Appalachian Mountains. It's a bunch of people who aren't educated. That's the stereotype. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm just saying that's the stereotype that some people have of these people. And they'll say, so what, these few thousand people don't have anything, so what? Well, how would you respond to that comment? Because I would think it wouldn't matter what industry, if this industry has stabilized a community for a long time, to tear it down would be heart-wrenching. But what do you say to something like that?
Well, first, of course, I'd just simply point out people are people. Human beings made in God's image are valuable, and we should love and care for all of them. We should be concerned about what harms any of them. That's just simply the case. But second, as I mentioned earlier, when Media Research Center sent out this team of a reporter and a cameraman, they headed for West Virginia basically because that was a close place to go to from where Media Research Center's headquarters is, which is in Washington, D.C. Now there, they happen to be dealing with a demographic that is largely white. But if they had gone to some parts of Ohio, for instance, or some parts of Kentucky, certainly to some parts of Illinois, where coal mining is, or at least was before the war on coal, a big thing, they'd have found people of color there working in the coal mines, or rather no longer working because their companies have gone bankrupt because of Obama's war on coal. So, in fact, this is an equal opportunity disemployer. An equal opportunity job destroyer, and it's an equal opportunity impoverisher. It doesn't care about the color of your skin. And frankly, when the electricity prices go up, it doesn't matter what color you are. You're going to pay those higher prices, and that's going to hurt you regardless of your race.
I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Beisner, because one thing that's been hurting my heart recently has been so many people in such an uproar about racial tensions, and it's just been really bothering me. And I could just see how someone can look totally past these people's pain and go, well, they're just white people. You know, I could totally see someone doing that and thinking that's okay to have this attitude, and it's not. I remember when that disaster happened in Chile, the world,
That's just as evil as saying, well, that's just black people.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It is. It totally is. And people say that it's not politically correct to say these things, but it's true nonetheless. And I remember when the Chile mining disaster happened in 2010, I was on pins and needles, and I didn't even know those men. I was on pins and needles, and I remember thinking they had to go all the way down into the ground. That's how dangerous this operation was to rescue these miners. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys. Whew, I remember thinking, being just terrified. It didn't matter that they were over in Chile and they had no idea who I was. I was generally concerned about their safety, like any person should be. And this should have the same impact. And so when you see this video, Collateral Damage, it's on YouTube. It's called Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties of the Left's War on Coal. You're going to be just as shocked as I was. You're going to be just as heart-wrenching, heart-stopping as it was for me, because you look at these poor people who had a good living. They were fine. And then all of a sudden these EPA regulations and the Obama administration started to crack down on the use of these types of fuels and fossil fuels, things of that nature. And now whole industries and whole communities are being affected by that. I didn't know. That's why I wanted to do this show. I had no idea. And if I can let someone out there who is having the same problem, having the same discussion, I want you to at least talk about this kind of thing. In our efforts to quote unquote save the planet, are we forgetting about the people who live here? We'll be back with more on this topic. If you want to call in, you certainly can. 646-668-8485, and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter, Parker J. Cole, #PJC Show, with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Autism affects 1 in 68 children, sweeping all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups. Autism is a lifelong brain disorder that leads to untold challenges to the physical, financial, and social well-being of people with autism and their families. Resources are stretched thin. The Autism Alliance of Michigan, a collective voice for families across the entire state, uses resources to help families battle challenges right here, right now. If you or anyone you know needs help navigating the autism journey, contact the Autism Alliance of Michigan today, 877-463-AAOM, or visit them online at aaomi.org.
Have you read the latest issue of SORMAG Digital, the award-winning literary magazine for multicultural readers and writers? SORMAG Digital is available quarterly and showcases interviews with the best authors in multicultural literature. SORMAG Digital features craft and business articles for those interested in writing. If you're looking for a good book, check out our book reviews on what's hot in multicultural literature. For writers looking for new readers to get in front of, SORMAG Digital is the perfect place to introduce your book. We offer advertising spaces that fit your promotional budget. Get your free subscription on SORMAG.com or order a print issue on MagCloud.com. If you would like more information about SORMAG Digital, check us out on SORMAG.com or contact us at SORMAG@yahoo.com. SORMAG Digital is the magazine for multicultural readers and writers.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to the Parker J. Cole Show right here on WPJC 104.5. I'm so glad you're here with me as we continue to talk about the movie Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties on the Left's War on Whole. And with me to help talk about this wonderful, very thought-provoking film is Dr. Calvin Beisner from the Cornwall Alliance. As you know, the Cornwall Alliance has been a returning guest on the Parker J. Cole Show. I really love what they're trying to do, what they do in educating us about the real issues surrounding global warming, climate change, the poor, poverty, all those things. They are here to help us understand that and also go against just the popular opinion. So if you want more information about the Cornwall Alliance, simply go to cornwallalliance.org and can follow them on Twitter at Cornwall Stewart on Twitter. You won't be disappointed with all the information that you will receive from this organization. Lots of learned men and women are part of this national coalition committed to bringing a balanced, biblical view of stewardship to the critical issues of environment and development. And Dr. Beisner, once again, thanks for being with us on the show. Really glad you are here with us. And so what I wanted to do, we do have a caller calling in from Kentucky. Caller from Kentucky, how are you doing today?
Hello, Parker, and I'm just so glad that somebody's talking about this topic. I live in Kentucky, right across from West Virginia. We live on the river, and this affects so many areas of our lives, I don't hardly know which topic to bring up first.
Well, go ahead, start somewhere.
Okay, well, it affects, my husband and I, we're not in the coal industry right now, but we live in, and it affects everything. Our property taxes have raised. Our school taxes are going to raise again. The schools and everybody has lost so much in the coal severance tax that they're trying to put all of that weight on the backs of those that still manage to find jobs. And it's just so devastating to the whole area. Restaurants close, people lose their houses. That video is so spot on. It is so. I sit there and cried through the whole thing because I'm like, this is so important. People need to know what this is Obama's legacy as far as I'm concerned, him killing so many parts of the world. And I don't want to really get on politics, but that's why you've seen so much red everywhere for Trump. I cannot wait. I pray for this man daily that he can do something. I mean, I'm a tree hugger. I want to be fair. I want the earth to be clean. I want us to leave a good, amount of clean air and clean water and all these things for our children. But at what price and at what cost do we do this? How many people do we hurt in order to save someone else?
Kentucky, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your thoughts. I'm going to let Dr. Beisner respond. Thank you for calling in today. Dr. Beisner?
Boy, that is such a great observation, because really what's happening in communities like that is it's not just hurting the coal mining families who lose jobs. It's also, as she said, hurting everybody else in the community. When those coal lose their income, then they can no longer patronize the other businesses in town, whether it's a restaurant or a grocery store or theater, whatever else. That means that those businesses go belly up. Meanwhile, the state loses all the tax revenues that it had from the coal companies as well as from the coal miners, and it's got to replace those tax revenues somehow. So it has to raise taxes on everybody else at the very same time that everybody else is losing business, losing income. So people's costs are rising at the very same time that their incomes are falling. And so it just ripples through the entire community. And I'm delighted that our caller from Kentucky was able to see the film and found it to be so true to her own experience. And I think that's exactly what it is. It just gives people from outside that area a view inside to be able to see what life really has become like there because of the war on coal.
It's interesting even that the title is called War on Coal, because you would think coal is the enemy. Is coal the enemy, Dr. Beisner?
Oh, absolutely not. Coal is one of the most important resources that mankind has ever harnessed. What it has done is it's provided the abundant, affordable, reliable energy, especially in the form of electricity, that has been absolutely essential, indispensable to lift whole societies out of poverty and to keep them out of poverty. This is really important. People don't necessarily think about where that energy comes from when they flip the light switch and the light goes on, when they turn on their computer, when they run their air conditioning or their heating or their washer and dryer and dishwasher and so on. But that electricity has to come from somewhere. And the cost of producing that electricity from coal is among the lowest costs we've got. Natural gas is competitive with that, but that's the only thing, really. Natural gas and nuclear and hydro are the only things that are competitive with coal. Wind and solar, which is what the green movement and the Obama administration want us to turn to replace coal as a source of electricity, wind and solar are much more expensive for producing electricity. And the big problem with them is not only are they more expensive in the first place, but also since they're intermittent, the wind is not always blowing, the sun is not always shining, right? You've got at least an average of 12 hours a day when the sun's not shining, right? Because of that, you have to keep coal or natural gas electric generating plants running at what's called spinning reserve at all times to replace the power when the wind dies down or when the sun goes down or the clouds cover over the sun. That means that you've got these other plants running in their least efficient state. And that also pushes up the price of electricity, but it also wastes energy, it wastes resources, because we wouldn't need to do that if we weren't trying to feed the wind and solar power into the grid. It's just a total lose-lose situation. The only good thing about wind and solar is the mega bucks that are being made by the owners of wind and solar industries. And those mega bucks come primarily from subsidies from our government, which are paid for by taxpayers.
It's interesting because that was one of the comments that was made in the movie. They said there's an agenda. We're being played around like we're puppets, something to that effect. And I couldn't help but be reminded of that, because why get rid of a whole industry unless you're trying to bring in another one? It's kind of like you got to look behind, see the man behind the curtain, as they say in Wizard of Oz. Ignore him. Let's ignore him. He's not really there. And so, like you said before on a previous show, there are people who make a lot of money from this stuff, and they can't make money that way. And if you can continue to separate those who have and those who have not, why not? If you can be one of those who have. And so one thing about this film that I really enjoyed was the realism of the people who were involved. These were not actors. These are not people who were trying to have some kind of agenda. They're saying, look, we are being devastated by what is happening here. And then they're not angry because they're not doing the best they can. They're doing the best that they can against an insurmountable odds. And so I remember one gentleman in the video, he couldn't hardly talk because he started crying. And he was a county clerk. He was a county clerk, and he was just like, we're going to get past this. Coal is going to be happening again. And what was so sad that since that documentary that had been recorded, that wasn't very long ago, 10,600 people had lost their jobs. So 10,000 families have been affected by that. 10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big number.
Yeah, and you asked whether coal is friend or enemy, and I gave you part of the answer to that. But the other part is this: not only does coal provide abundant, affordable, and reliable electricity to millions and millions of people, but also when we burn coal to make electricity, and we therefore add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, we're actually making everybody in the world eat better. Not just people, but all the animals as well. And here's why. Carbon dioxide is plant food. Plants need it in order to do photosynthesis, and they grow better the higher the carbon dioxide content of the atmosphere. For every doubling of CO2 concentration in the atmosphere, you get an average 35% increase in plant growth efficiency. Plants grow better in warmer and cooler temperatures, in wetter and drier soils. They make better use of soil nutrients. They improve their fruit-to-fiber ratio. And so as a result, crop yields go up. So something on the order of 15% of all the increase in average yield per acre of crops around the world over the last 50 years can probably be attributed simply to the increase in CO2 in our atmosphere. That's a really, really good thing, and it helps the poor more than it helps anybody else, because the poor have the greatest difficulty affording food. But basically, it makes more food available for everything that eats plants and everything that eats things that eat plants. That's certainly people. So it's definitely a friend, and it's just terribly sad to have seen it vilified by those who are saying that it's going to cause catastrophic global warming. No. It does make the world a little bit warmer than it otherwise would be, but not much, certainly not enough to cause any kind of dangerous results for any kind of life on Earth, any ecosystems, and certainly not humanity.
We got a comment from Sheila in Detroit. Sheila says, I've known people who came from West Virginia who worked in the coal mines. They say the work was hard and dangerous. Many men suffered with breathing problems. The companies made millions, and the government did not put in enough safety regulations to help these people. I grew up where we had a coal stove to heat the house. This industry, like the steel mills, is gone. Pittsburgh. This is another American industry gone. Sheila, thank you so much for your comment. I like how she says this. She said it's another American industry gone, and she talked the steel mills. And so you see where people, where these things are just having a huge impact on not just these small communities, but on the country as a whole. And I think what collateral damage does is shows that.
Yeah, it does. And, she says that the steel industry, steel mills are gone. No, they're not gone, actually. Steel mills were improved. They were made much cleaner. Coal mining used to be a much more dangerous activity back more than 40 or 50 years ago. But regulations placed on safety in the coal mines and on keeping down the amount of coal dust in the coal mines, things like that, have resulted in coal mining actually being a very safe activity. The number of people harmed in coal mining accidents has dwindled to practically nothing over the last 30 years or so. As a matter of fact, this is going to shock people, but if you go to the statistics provided by the Bureau of the Census on causes of accidental death in the United States, the odds of your dying from a fall slipping in your bathtub are higher than the odds of a coal miner dying in a coal mining accident.
Oh, my.
Being in your bathtub is more dangerous than working in a coal mine. Now, it didn't used to be that way, but that's the way it is today because of the safety improvements that have been made. We know how, for instance, when we burn coal to make electricity, we know how to take out of the emissions, to take out all the sulfur oxides, all the nitrogen oxides, all of the coal dust, the coal fly ash, these sorts of things. We can filter all of those out so that the only things coming out of the smokestack at coal-fired power plants are water vapor and carbon dioxide. And water vapor is great in that it eventually comes down as rain and waters the soil. And carbon dioxide is great in that it makes plants grow better. So coal is certainly not a dangerous substance. as it once was, and yet even when it was dangerous, it brought so many benefits that those benefits far outweighed the risks.
I'm glad you corrected me and gave us some more education on that, because that's what the show is all about. I always say, correct me if I am wrong. I will not lose sleep, okay? I will not lose sleep if I am wrong, because chances are I wouldn't know. And so that's the thing about this type of show, is that we want to basically give people information that you may not have known. Like I said, before I watched this video, I had no idea. And the video's 26 minutes long, so it's not a huge chunk of your day. But I encourage our listeners out there to simply go to mrctv.org. This is a division of MRC, and they filmed this documentary, and it's 26 minutes long. You won't be disappointed. If anything, you'll be educated. And you look at hardworking people who have the same dreams that you have, who have the same type of drive to succeed in their life, to provide for their families, being devastated by overregulation in this industry. Now, Dr. Beisner, let me ask you a quick kind of devil's advocate question, for the lack of a better term, if only to make sure that we are being as objective as possible with the topic. Wouldn't these EPA regulations that the Obama administration implemented, wouldn't some good have come from them at all? Is it all just about getting rid of the coal, or is there some sort of good coming from them at all?
Well, frankly, when the question is put that way, I think anybody sensible at all has got to say, yes, there would be some good come from them. The question is, does the good outweigh the bad? And the answer to that is absolutely not. It's the other way around completely. Think about this as an example. For about $100 billion a year, we could afford, the world could afford to provide purified drinking water to all of the people around the world who do not have it now. That would prevent millions of deaths every year from waterborne diseases. Now, if we spend $1 trillion a year trying to reduce global warming, that means we can't spend any of those $1 trillion on providing purified drinking water to the people in the world who don't have it. So, suppose for a moment that as a byproduct of our reducing the use of fossil fuels, we prevent the deaths of, say, maybe 100 people a year in the fossil fuel industry from mining or drilling accidents, right? Suppose we prevent those deaths. We'd say, okay, that's a good outcome. But what about the millions and millions of people a year whose deaths we didn't prevent because we couldn't afford to, because we were spending all this money to try to reduce global warming? It's a concept that economists call opportunity cost. What you spend on A, you can't spend on B. And so if we're going to spend all this money fighting global warming, then we can't fight things that are much greater risks. And frankly, poverty is a far, far greater risk than anything connected to climate. If you have income even equal to, low-income Americans, you can thrive in terms of your basic health and long life. You can thrive in any climate from the Arctic Circle to the Sahara Desert. But if you're extremely poor, you can't thrive in the best tropical paradise. You will be sick most of your life. You'll die young. I mean, this is just what comes with poverty. So overcoming poverty is a far greater priority than anything that we could do related to climate. And that's without even getting into the question of, okay, so how much do we actually reduce global average temperature if we do these things? The answer is we could fulfill everything the Paris Climate Treaty calls for and reduce global average temperature by no more than 0.36 degrees Fahrenheit, 3/600ths of a degree. That is simply irrelevant to anybody's welfare.
And that's what I like about Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties of the Left's War on Coal. It's giving you more than just the hype. It's giving you the real. And that's what I hope you will get when you watch this short documentary that was documented and recorded by MRC. And to get more information about it, go to mrctv.org. Now, Cornwall Alliance is here to help educate us and present a biblical worldview or stewardship in our world. And they are on the the battlefield against the neo-Darwinistic views of climate change, which at the end of the day, Dr. Beisner, is all that it is. And so in the closing of our show today, what are some of your final thoughts on this topic?
Well, Parker, thanks so much for asking that way, because it gives me an opportunity to say what really is heavy on my heart about these things. I got involved in this battle because early in my life I lived in India, and I saw the ravages of extreme poverty. In fact, every morning I was taken down several blocks from my apartment where my family lived. I was walked down those blocks to go to a home where I was taken care of for the day, because my mother was actually paralyzed by a disease that she caught in India because of the poverty there. And so every morning we would step over the bodies of scores and scores of people, even just within a few blocks, who had died overnight of starvation and disease. That's what poverty is all about. And I have firm memories of those things. I know what poverty is like. And so when I recognized that what we were being asked to do to fight global warming was to trap billions of people in extreme poverty for generations to come by depriving them of access to the abundant, affordable, reliable electricity that is indispensable to their rising out of poverty, I realized this is a battle that I need to be involved with. And that's why I started the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. And that kind of thinking is expressed in, for example, a paper that we have online at cornwallalliance.org called A Call to Truth, Prudence, and Protection of the Poor 2014. The case against harmful climate policies gets stronger. And in that we have a climate scientist and an environmental economist, both of whom are outstanding world-class scholars, and they explain the scientific case, not saying that there is no such thing as human-induced global warming, but saying it is much, much smaller than what the alarmists claim that it is. And they present the economic case that the solutions to global warming that the alarmists are calling for would simply trap people in poverty for generations to come. So cornwallalliance.org, click on Landmark Documents, that's Landmark Documents, and you'll find that paper and quite a few others that explain the science for you, explain the economics for you, and most importantly explain the ethics and the theology for you, what the scriptures, the Bible, God's Word, tell us to do in terms of the importance of protecting the poor from harm imposed by rich and powerful people in government.
Dr. Beisner, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. As always, it's always a joy to have you with us, and it's real good to hear from you, and I can't wait to have you back again.
Well, thanks very much, Parker, and God bless you. Thanks so much for doing the show. I think it's a very important topic.
And we were talking today to Dr. Calvin Beisner. He is from the Cornwall Alliance. If you want to get more information about Cornwall Alliance, simply go to their website, cornwallalliance.org, or you can follow them on Twitter at Cornwall Steward. It's a national coalition committed to bringing a balanced biblical view of stewardship to the critical issues of environment and development. And one thing that the Cornwall Alliance taught me that I did not know ever before I talked to them was how are the poor affected by these initiatives to save the planet, by global warming and climate change policies. That had never come into the dialogue until I started looking at the Cornwall Alliance. Again, go to their website, cornwallalliance.org. You'll be just blessed by the number of scholarly articles they have and the people that are on board with wanting climate change. But good climate change policy helps the poor, not just a few. And then go ahead. I want you to go to mrctv.org. Look at this video, Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties of the Left's War on Coal. When you look at this video, you'll be just as torn up as I was about a whole livelihood of people's lives just changed based off of government regulations. Someone who doesn't even live in your town, someone who doesn't understand what's going on your level can have such a huge impact on your life. I know we will all hate that. If someone from up there somewhere in government affected our livelihood, and as our caller called in, guess what? It does affect not just one segment of the population, but a bunch of segments. And guess what? It trickles down into the communities. If you watch Collateral Damage, be sure to share this video with other people. We want people to know what is going on. Several organizations, including Americans for Tax Reform, Competitive Enterprise Institute, Cornwall Alliance, E&E Legal, and the Heartland Institute, they have joined with MRC TV in order to tell the story the media won't tell you. And that's the most important part. The media is not going to tell you this information, because if they told you, you would be educated, and you may have different views about things that you have about now. You know, the Bible says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. We want to be knowledgeable about our world. We want to be knowledgeable about the people who are inside of our world, too. I am all for saving the planet. We should be good stewards of the planet that God gave us. But we can't be good stewards of the planet without the adequate information that we need to make the right changes in policy. Then no one wins. Even those who make a lot of money, eventually, guess what? They won't win either. So that's why I want you to go ahead, look at this video, Collateral Damage, Forgotten Casualties on the Left's War on Coal, and make sure you share with as many people as you possibly can. If you want to tweet it, the hashtag they're tweeting under is Collateral Damage. And guess what? You will be blessed by the video. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of the Parker J. Cole Show. Don't forget to join Deborah for Dovetails on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here. Also, our newest show, The Marriage Playbook, airs Mondays from 7 to 9 p.m. on WPJC Media. And our newest show, Let's Talk About It with Jenny White, airs Fridays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for joining me. You have a wonderful, absolutely glorious, blessed day, and God bless.
Experience a new way to shop at Value City Furniture. With made-to-mix furniture, you can now easily mix and unmatch styles to create a space that's totally you. So long, matchy-matchy. It's time to mix it up and make it you. And now, hurry to Value City Furniture for our Labor Day sale and get free delivery plus 36 months no-interest financing on your Value Plus credit card when you spend $19.99 and up. Plus, shop this week and save big on select bedrooms, dining rooms, reclining groups, and more during the Labor Day sale at Value City Furniture. Financing subject to credit approval. See store for details. Experience a new way to shop at Value City Furniture. With made-to-mix furniture, you can now easily mix and unmatch styles to create a space that's totally you. So long, matchy-matchy. It's time to mix it up and make it you. And now, hurry to Value City Furniture for our Labor Day sale and get free delivery plus 36 months no-interest financing on your Value Plus credit card when you spend $19.99 and up. Plus, shop this week and save big on select bedrooms, dining rooms, reclining groups, and more during the Labor Day sale at Value City Furniture. Financing subject to credit approval. See store for details.